What's up, y'all? They were gonna be watching some Ukraine, like infographic show, but uh, how much one watch? Let's watch Francis ww3. Let's watch this boy.
Do this with 6 seconds.
Well, these ads.
The peace dividend of the end of the Cold War is over, so said France's President Emmanuel Macron, as the world enters a new age and leaves behind the peaceful decades following the collapse of the Soviet Union. The Russian bear has once more awoken, and
Call these dude.
brought with it the threat of a full-scale war in Europe. In the last few months, we've been highly critical of European countries and the status of their militaries, and with good reason. What used to be some of the most powerful militaries on Earth have become atrophied husks of their former selves.
It's crazy how people back then, I said, shows like right here and stuff, they just running to die, bro. Like the army didn't even care. Nowadays, it's not like that, bro. Like everyone cares about the men. Back then, bro, it's like you're going in there to die, bro, for real.
In some way, this is to be expected, as pretty much every Western nation stood down from their Cold War high readiness state. But in many ways, Europe has allowed its militaries to atrophy to the point it's become criminal and put an incredible burden on the United States to be the guarantor of European security.
So I think what he says that to get this European is getting the security so high up, it's like I don't know, it's like pushing the line of war crimes. I think he's trying to say.
Many Americans, rightfully so, feel that Europe has been largely freeloading on the US's security guarantees. France, however, is not one of those nations. While its military is still not in great shape for a major conflict today, the Ukraine war has shown us that most nations' militaries aren't fully prepared for high-intensity combat either, including the
Yeah, y'all be seeing you see that, bro? Everywhere around Ukraine right now, they're they're getting just what is it called, barricades and stuff. Like they're ready. Like NATO and Poland, bro. He sent I don't know how many troops to Poland, bro. Just 'cause NATO, bro. We have that place blocked off. If Russia tries to take Ukraine, try to take us, bro, they're dead. Like, come on. So yeah, if Russia wants to get more power in Ukraine, bro. It's World War III. But it's crazy how all these countries have service and military around for real.
the US. Even so, the French military remains a competent and capable force on the continent. While once Britain's fleets and Germany's ground forces were to be feared, it's now France who's almost certainly the dominant European power in both areas. France and the UK both have around 200,000 active duty personnel, with nearly equal number of reservists, 35,000, versus UK's 37,000. The French defense budget is only $5 billion short of the UK's $50 billion budget, and yet France fields a significantly more capable military than the UK. It has just over 1,000 combat aircraft versus the UK's 663, with 226 dedicated fighter aircraft.
No, that's just how I don't get in my mind. 1,000 aircraft. I would think they have thousands of aircraft, not just hundreds. Bro, isn't that crazy? You know how much fighter pilots there are? Oh, bro. What is it showing? 7,000 active duty pilots. Bro, and how much aircraft do we have? I don't know if I'm wrong or right, but 13,000. So you see that difference compared to like how many firefights? Like I think it's 4,000. It showed. So yeah, not a lot. So we have more fire pilots than that thing, but it just like it hurts my head to think about like these countries don't even have that much. Or like same with aircraft carriers. Only 11, bro. Bro, I know our boys USA can get more than that. Come on. They're slacking, bro.
Aircraft versus 119. On the ground, France does come up 5 tanks short of the UK, with 222 versus the UK's 227, while the UK takes the edge slightly on armored vehicles and artillery. At sea, the UK operates 2 aircraft carriers versus France's lone Charles de Gaulle nuclear carrier, but France has 3
Bro, 2 aircraft, only 2. 1 nuclear, bro. That's how you know that the USA is so advanced more than all these other
smaller assault carriers, while the UK has none. France also operates 4 more destroyers than the UK, though 1 less sub. So what makes France probably Europe's best military at the moment? For once, it's proven its ability to fight largely independently of any other power. For over a decade, France has been involved in a fight against Islamic extremists across Africa, and while it's had the support of the US in various ways, France has been able to operate largely independently during this protracted campaign. The UK, meanwhile, is extremely dependent on the US for logistical support, including physically moving its troops where they're needed.
Yeah, that's another thing that I noticed. Like the US, we're like in charge of everything. Like it's us and a few other countries that like the whole world depends on us, Russia, like somewhere near Afghanistan, like Iran and those places. In some places like Spain and those places, and maybe some places in South America. That's all we depend on. Really, without America, bro, people could be starting wars and wars, bro. It could be like back in like the 1800s or like a what, bro. Like, like without America, bro, there would be no protection. Like all these countries depend on America. It's crazy.
If a European battle royale were to break out right now, smart money's on France or Spain at the moment, not the typical military powerhouses of the UK and Germany. France was one of the first countries to wake up to the realization
Germany still has some military. I thought the military got taken out. So, well, says they do have a military, but technically it's in military, but like if you want to be um, in the military and you're German, bro, I'm pretty sure you have to join like some weird NATO thing, bro.
that the Cold War peace dividend was over and take action. President Macron has pledged over 500 billion in spending through 2030, meaning that by the end of the decade, the French military's budget would be double.
I don't know about you guys, but 500 billion, that's like nothing to the countries. The 500 billion is nothing. Bro, I'm pretty sure America's on like a few $1 trillion in debt. It probably won't show me. $31.3 trillion, bro. I don't know about you, but that's like
This is especially good news for its nuclear
see this, bro. What is that?
Nuclear arm, as France remains EU's sole nuclear power, but is in a bad need of upgrades and modernization. This is hardly news though, as every nuclear power is either in the middle of modernization or planning to start the process soon, having allowed nuclear systems to deteriorate since the end of the Cold War. But France was already modernizing even before the outbreak of the Ukraine war. Starting in 2020, the French military has been undergoing a 40-year modernization plan named Scorpion. France has taken a page out of the US military's playbook and is looking to adopt a similar network-centric style of warfare. In the US, this is known as Joint All-Domain Command and Control and consists of networking together various weapon platforms and soldiers. This allows the US assets to work closely together to the point of allowing one asset to spot a target and a completely
I was like watching this movie and it was crazy. This dude, all you had to do is like, there's this, what's it called? Oh yeah, battle Los Angeles, but like these Marines that kill aliens for a living and stuff like that. But like, bro, all they had to do was point a laser, and that baby with the bomb just came in. It was like guided missile too. Like, bro, if you really think about it, like, how do people become so smart to do that?
different one to engage it. It's the key to the high mobility and high lethality.
Like the first person you didn't think of a microchip, bro. Like he might have thought about it, but how would he make it, bro? He didn't have any schooling. No one knew how to do that.
Of the US forces, and France has definitely taken notice. France calls it combined collaborative combat, and it's specifically looking into information technology upgrades for its armored forces. The military is looking to bring light and medium armor platforms into current military networks, much like its heavy tank fleet. This will be an immediate force multiplier for many platforms that normally are too lightly armored to operate in the thick of combat operations. By networking them together with more survivable platforms, they can quickly engage targets and then fall back out of danger. One of the biggest upgrades is the Jaguar Armed Recon and Combat Vehicle. This vehicle is meant to replace 3 different platforms: the AMX-10RC tank destroyer, the ERC-90 Sergei Armored Recon.
Man, is it just me, or is the other countries' militaries like have the ugliest uniforms? Besides France, I like France, I like Spain's, I like the United Kingdoms. Yeah, you know what? I like the Colombian police's uniforms. Those look awesome, bro. Those look sick.
Recon vehicle, and the VAB Hot Mephisto Armored Personnel Carrier. Replacing 3 vehicles with one means incredibly more efficient logistics.
Bro, let's go back to that. That looks like something you'd use in zombie apocalypse, bro. Just take off that little hand cannon thing, the little machine gun, bro. Boss from armor around it, bro.
Armored Personnel Carrier. Replacing 3 vehicles with one means incredibly more efficient logistics support, even if it's coming with some compromises. The Jaguar is not as survivable as its American Striker counterpart, for example, but it's better prepared for World War III for one key reason. Unlike the American Striker, the Jaguar makes use of a
Oh, tough lie. Well, you don't want to go right here. You'll end up in the expansive clothing and apparel
of a commercial truck chassis, meaning that it can be easily replaced during high attritional conflict. The Striker, meanwhile, has to be built from scratch by its manufacturer. This simple fact is even more important given that war games between US forces and a comparable near-peer force show that within 6 months of fighting, most of the US tank fleet would be destroyed or left inoperable. In that same time, the US would be lucky to replenish 20% of its losses, even with boosted production capacity. By the end of the first year of high-intensity combat, the most common vehicle used by the American forces would be a simple armored gun truck. In such a catastrophic high-intensity scenario against a near peer, France would be far better prepared to replenish losses with a capable combat vehicle compared to America. France's Scorpion modernization plan will enter phase Titan in 2030. This will run through to 2045 and have 2 different focuses. The first will be on modernizing France's heavy tanks, artillery, and combat helicopters, advances in anti-tank munitions such as new anti-tank guided missiles or Russia's new 900mm kinetic energy penetrator for its T-14 armadas will mean that French tanks require upgrades to armor, mobility, sensors, and their own firepower. While Russia won't be fielding the T-14 anytime soon, especially after sanctions, eventually it will, or a possible adversary will field.
I just figured out a few days ago that Russia's so poor they're still using weapons from like the Cold War era. Cold War era, bro.
A similar threat. France simply cannot afford to rest on its heels despite fielding the very capable Leclerc. Upgrades for combat helicopters will focus on increased endurance, speed, and sensors. The Ukrainian war has proven that combat helicopters are extremely vulnerable on the modern battlefield, and better interconnectivity will allow them to operate safely in a higher threat environment. Attack helicopters are only good on the front lines, but if it becomes too deadly for them to operate, then they need to be able to speak with other military assets who could provide targeting solutions for their weapons. As the man-portable air defense threat is likely going to increase in lethality, the ability to provide precision fire support from
That makes me mad why like they're spending all this money on like stuff like that, bro. Like I bet money that not, like maybe a few a few like decades or something like that, bro. We'll just be using missiles. We don't even need men, bro. Like maybe men like guide missiles and stuff, but like everything's gonna be like robots and machines.
outside the threat range of enemy air defenses is increasingly more critical. Likewise, French artillery will focus on upgrading their mobility and ability to network with other systems. The Ukrainian army has proven the deadly effectiveness of precision artillery, such as the US's Excalibur round, which allows an artillery piece to have the precision of a guided rocket or missile. While modern air defenses can do a good job of protecting from rockets and missiles, if employed properly, artillery shells are incredibly difficult to intercept, and a battery of artillery working together could easily defeat even the best defenses. But French forces have a critical weakness that needs shoring up if it's to fight a modern conventional war. The French military can pack a mighty punch, but a Rand Corporation study pointed out its biggest weakness. It has low readiness levels and lacks depth. The deployment of French soldiers to act in anti-terrorism roles inside of France, as well as ongoing operations in Africa, have put a tremendous stress on the French military. And like the US, ongoing counter-terrorism operations have eroded its edge in fighting conventional power conflicts. Currently, the French military is better geared for fighting light, mobile conflicts against extremists in Africa rather than a major industrialized conflict. To increase readiness, the French military needs to focus training on fighting near-peer foes and large unit tactics. Its military must also be geared to be effective in a highly contested environment by an opponent wielding a large amount of anti-access area denial assets. Currently, Western militaries have been spoiled by fighting in extremely permissible environments, such as sub-Saharan Africa or in the Middle East. However, to fight World War III, France must relearn how to fight without all the advantages it has enjoyed for over 2 decades. For example, a study conducted on US troops found an over-reliance on fire support by infantry. In a near-peer conflict, such fire support may not be available, and American infantry needs to be prepared to make the hard charges that their forefathers did in World War II and learn to fight without support.
If a scammer gets on your system, they're going to live on there. They'll go through things like your photos, on your browser, your emails, passwords.
Support elements if need be. If war did break out, though, it would likely be against either China or Russia, and in either case, France would enjoy the vast support of the entirety of NATO. In a conflict against Russia, France would be responsible for providing ground forces to the eastern allies such as Poland, where it's certain that NATO's major ground campaign would begin. Its air force, one of the best on the continent, would fly alongside US forces stationed in Germany as the tip of the aerial spear in a fight for the skies over Eastern Europe, before transitioning to ground support roles after sweeping the skies clear of Russian MiGs. At sea, France's navy would be critical for either a Russian or Chinese conflict. In case of a war in Europe, French surface vessels could be used to plug the Greenland-Iceland-UK gap, and thus keep Russian attack subs from striking at US Atlantic convoys, ferrying troops and equipment to mainland Europe. However, France could also support the operation to block up the Baltic Sea. a task made much simpler by the possible ascension of Sweden and Finland to NATO. In a Pacific conflict, French submarines would be of critical assistance to U.S. forces. France, like its U.S. ally, operates a nuclear submarine force. This gives them the endurance needed to assist in conflicts on the other side of the world. Given that a war with China would be certain to break out over the invasion of Taiwan, France has strong reasons to see a Chinese invasion fail. A successful takeover of Taiwan by China.
That's crazy the way China even wants Taiwan. Like for real. I've had some Taiwan food that is not good, bro. Just no offense to y'all, it's just not good. Like, why do they want Taiwan for extra territory? Like, you guys already have so much territory, like just to live with it.
China would leave the Chinese Communist Party in control of most of the world's microchip supply, without which a modern economy cannot function. This would leave the CCP with irresistible leverage over France and the rest of the world. French nuclear weapons would hopefully never be used, but in case of a conflict, they act as the EU's only measure of independent nuclear deterrence. While Europe is covered by the US's nuclear umbrella, meaning that America has committed to responding with nukes against anyone nuking a European city, the 4 years of the Trump presidency put into doubt the security alliance of Europe and the US for the first time since World War II. Having an independent nuclear deterrent is of significant interest for the EU. No matter the conflict that they end up fighting, French forces have proven themselves to be competent and capable. Their only weakness is a lack of depth and a serious vulnerability to becoming combat ineffective due to high attrition. This is a weakness that every military has at the moment, given that no one, except perhaps North Korea, has given serious thought to the rate at which modern combat chews up equipment and ammunition. France has seen the threat, though, and is investing in not just its military but its defense industry too. But these investments have to compete with investments in education, healthcare, and other measures that have a direct and immediate impact on people's lives. Military investments are intangible for the average citizen, up until the moment they're not, because your nation's at war. Given how unlikely war is, though, it remains to be seen just how committed the French people are to upgrading their military.
Yeah, for real, like, ain't no leader is stupid enough to start with a leader. They already know they do. The whole world's gonna end. Because everyone's gonna push the button and everyone's gonna explode because of nukes, bro.
Capabilities. Now go check out how your tax dollars are being spent with top 10 most.
But you know what this? I I just want to tell y'all, like, thank you for all the support.
How? How did this happen? Screams a U.S. fleet admiral.
I just want to tell y'all, thank you for like being supportive and stuff. I haven't like uploaded a lot since like a while ago, so just thank y'all. Have a good day or night, whenever you watch this, and bye y'all. Also, join my group. It's link in description. My everything's linked in description, Discord too, everything.